Hello everyone, Jolene here from Bookworm Adventure Girl. Welcome back. I hope that you are all well. This is where I talk about the books that I'm reading, and I like to read diverse books and I highlight Canadian literature. If you are new, thanks so much for checking out my channel. Please hit subscribe and stick around. As you may know, the long list for the Giller Prize was announced yesterday. So today I am going to be talking about the long list, and I will share some of my thoughts. If you aren't familiar with the Giller Prize, it is the biggest Canadian literary prize given to works of fiction. So either novels, short stories, or graphic novels. I will leave a link to the website below where you can get more information and check it out. Some of you may have already seen my long list hopefuls video that I did a little bit ago. If you watched that and you know the long list, then you will know that I didn't pick any books that made the long list. I thought I had one, but when I looked back, I remembered that it was on my list, but I switched it out. So it's kind of disappointing because there are books that I was really hoping would make the list, but it's also exciting because it means I have several opportunities to explore new books and new authors. So I wish I had the time to read the long list and my hopefuls list to compare them, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. I don't have the time to do that. But let's get to this list. So the judges read 145 books, and they chose 12 books for the long list. 3 of them, I'm not surprised. The one that I had thought I put on my hopefuls list was Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein, because this was also longlisted for the Booker. It's definitely getting some buzz this year. It makes sense to me that it's on the list. I was also not surprised to see Birnam by Eleanor Catton. Even though the reviews for this seem polarizing, Eleanor Catton is an incredible writer, so we will see how far this environmental thriller goes. And then the third book that I was not surprised to see was Away from the Dead by David Bergen. Now, this book wasn't necessarily on my radar. I don't believe that I even mentioned it at any point. But David Bergen seems to be a favorite in the Giller world. He has been longlisted or shortlisted several times. The only book that I've ever read from him was Hear the Dark, which is a collection of short stories and a novella. And it had been shortlisted for the Giller in 2020. Now, I read it. It didn't make me want to run out and read more of his books, but Away from the Dead is a novel, and if it gets shortlisted, I will read it. The Clarion by Nina Dunic. Now, this novel I am aware of. I've seen it on a couple of Canadian literary lists, but the cover is boring as all heck. And the blurb about it is confusing. I know that it's about siblings, and it's a debut novel. That's not much, but if I get a chance to read it, I will keep you posted. And I'm hoping that it's one of those kind of hidden gems in the bunch. All the Color in the World by C.S. Richardson. This story takes place in Toronto in the 20s and 30s, and also I think later on in Europe. The main character is a young boy who is an artist, and I think it might be a coming-of-age story. So this is another one that I have seen on some Canadian literary lists, and I'm intrigued by this one. There are always short stories included on the long list. So I'm going to take a look at those next. We Have Never Lived on Earth by Kasia van Schaik, I think it is. It's a debut short story collection. The stories are about female experience, including mothers and daughters, friends, and it's also about ecological issues like forest fires. And then there's The Islands by Dionne Irving. This is another short story collection. And this has been on my radar. I had actually marked it as a possibility. These stories are about Jamaican women all over the world, and they explore colonialism and race. immigration, and sexual discrimination. So my guess is that at least one of these collections will make it through to the short list. Sometimes the short stories do win, so we'll see. A graphic novel has usually been included in the long list over the last few years. This year there are no graphic novels, and I'm going to say that the closest to it would be The Double Life of Benson by Kevin Chong. Now I only say it's close because, first of all, the cover, I thought it was a graphic novel. And the story is about a graphic novelist telling about his upbringing in Chinatown in the 1980s. And I'm definitely interested in the time period on this one. So this leaves 4 novels. We Meant Well by Erum, Shazia, Hasan. This is another debut. And I will say that the list this year is really showing off the debuts. This book sounds like my thing, just based on this line from the blurb. It says, a propulsive debut that grapples with timely questions about what it means to be charitable, who deserves what, and who gets the power to decide. So that's totally my kind of thing, I think. We'll see how that one goes. Wait Softly Brother by Kathryn Kuitenbrouwer. This book has potential if you can do what it promises. So the main character is Kathryn. I always find it really interesting when an author names the character after them. Anyway, Kathryn is a writer. She is newly divorced and she goes to her parents' home to do some writing. And it seems to be a book about family and memories, and I think it's going to be bringing a couple of stories together. The Rooftop Garden by Menaka Raman-Wilms is another debut, and also another book about climate change and the environment. So we seem to be leaning towards that as a theme this year. I don't know, maybe it's just me. I'm not sure if that's on purpose or kind of just what's out there right now, because it is an important topic. And then the final book on the list is Girlfriend on Mars by Deborah Willis. This is another debut, and I don't know how many debuts we're at this point. I think we're like at least half maybe of the long list is debuts. This is science fiction, and I'm not always drawn to sci-fi books, as you know, but this kind of appeals to me. The concept is really interesting. This is about a reality show where people are competing to go to Mars. And I just have a feeling that this might be a really fun read. So that is this year's Giller Prize Longlist. It's an interesting list. I don't think that there are any Indigenous authors, which is surprising. Now I'm not positive because there are quite a few new authors to me, so maybe they are there and I just don't know that. There are 2 books that I'm shocked didn't make the list. Fayne by Anne-Marie MacDonald, which I just finished, and In the Upper Country by Kai Thomas. Like, even though I haven't read that one yet, I've heard some amazing things about that book, and I thought for sure both of those books were going to make it onto the long list. From the long list, I hope to read a few before the short list is announced on October the 11th. I'm going to say the 3 that are high on my list are The Islands by Dionne Irving. And I think We Meant Well by Erum, Shazia, Hasan is one I will enjoy. And All the Color in the World by C.S. Richardson. Those are all now kind of high on my radar. I'm not sure how many I will actually get to on the long list before the short list is announced. The waits at the library are already pretty long, so we will see. But I will be reading the entire short list. So if I can get a few read before the short list, that will at least help. So please let me know. What do you think of this year's Giller Longlist? Are there any books that you were hoping for that made it to the list? Or any books that you're disappointed that didn't make it? And are you going to read any books from the long list? I would love to hear all about it. And I look forward to chatting with you in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And don't forget to make every day an adventure.